Welcome to the Real Estate Debate.
Oh, right, guy.
And today we're debating the hottest topics in real estate.
But I'm not going to stop yelling because then that'll mean I lost the fight.
And now, the host of the Real Estate Debate, Mr. Credit, on ESPN Radio 1700.
Let the games begin. Hey-o.
All right. It is that time, my favorite time of the week. Time for the Real Estate Debate, where we debate the hottest topics in San Diego real estate. Today we have a great crew in studio. We've got repeat guests, we've got former winners, we've got first-timers in here. Let's start with a man who just picked up his hardware, Brian DeVore, who is 1 for 1 so far in the Real Estate Debate. Show the trophy.
There it is. Where's the camera?
Mr. Credit
There it is.
if you want to see. It's a really legit trophy. Brian DeVore is going to attempt today to become the first two-time winner on the Real Estate Debate. I will let you know, 4 others have attempted and failed
Oh, boy.
to do this. And there's a little conspiracy
No pressure or
theory out
anything,
there.
right?
Well, people think I don't want to give the trophy. Hey, trust me. I'll give the trophy to whoever wins the debate. Believe me on that. Good luck today.
Thank
Brian
you very
DeVore
much.
from
It'll be tough, but we'll give it a shot.
I should say Brian DeVore from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services of California Properties.
Right. Very
and
good.
thedevores.com. Also, a repeat guest on the Real Estate Debate, Dana Harris, is here from Coastal Premier Properties and ranchandcoastlifestyle.com. Dana didn't win his first time on, and I have a feeling today he's going to employ some sort of strategy to blitzkrieg or a kamikaze. I don't know, but I think he's your game today, right, Dana?
Yeah, sleeper hold or something. I'm not sure. We're gonna pull it out.
Atomic suplex. He's gonna bring his heat today. I can feel it, Dana. Also, very excited to have for the first time on this program a representative of Redfin.com. We have Jordan Clark in here today, who's a real estate agent with Redfin.com. Jordan, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, Derek.
Yeah, great to have you. Now, there's a lot of, in the real estate community, some people have, I don't know what you would call it, maybe some animosity towards some of the more online platforms like the Zillows and Trulies. But Redfin is really unique in the sense that you guys actually have real estate agents like yourself to service the clients on the other end. So I'll be very much looking forward to your opinion and your perspective on the market as we move forward. So let's get it going. It's time for the Real Estate Debate. First thing we do is we describe the current state of San Diego's market with one word and then explain why. Now, I know there are different pockets around San Diego and that all are acting a little differently at different times. This question is about the overall marketplace. Dana, we're going to start with you.
Okay. Well, I operate primarily in the coastal communities of North County Coastal, and kind of what we're still seeing is I would call it a seller's market. I mean, I think inventory's still low. Days on market roughly half of what they were a year ago. Things are moving, and prices are still rising. I think as a result of that. So
we're still seeing price appreciation in that coastal area.
Yeah, some. Mm-hmm.
Really. And demand is still there to support the inventory that we've got now?
Demand's a little slow. I mean, that kind of jumps to the describing the word, the market in one word for me, but it's a little slow. I mean, there's definitely activity, but buyers appear to be a little more cautious and not in such a big hurry to do things. So they're very cautious, very thorough, analytical about what they're doing. There's not that kind of market frenzy like I think we saw a little bit last year toward the end of the year.
Yeah, well, I think
a lot
of people would say that's a healthy sign.
It's
honestly.
a healthy sign.
Yeah, I think that's good. There's not so much emotion involved. Brian DeVore, what do you think? Describe it in one word and tell me why.
So if I were to do one word, I would say localized. I know you said, at the beginning of, I know there's pockets, but it really is truly localized. And you know how I like to bring my stats with me. So if I look at the HomeDex report, which is a report provided by the North San Diego County Association of Realtors, they say the median, this is for June, the median price single-family detached home in the county increased 6%, and in over May of 2014, and 9.28% over June of last year. So prices are up for the entire county.
So month over month, and then year over year.
Correct.
As well.
But then you break it down into regions: North San Diego County, East, South San Diego Metro, and then you look at the general San Diego County, and it's not the same for every region. For example, in North, in 2014, prices were up, but in East County, prices were down over last year. Then if you break it down even further, getting even more localized, I compared Carlsbad 92009 to Oceanside 92054. And I won't go into all the stats, but basically in 09, sales this year versus last year, down 14%, prices up 9%. But in Oceanside, sales were down only 5%, prices were up 22%.
Wow.
In that zip code. So that's why I say it is really localized. You can't really say it's a buyer's market or a seller's market unless you look at the area. So it is localized still.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. I really appreciate that. That gives you an idea of kind of how things are going. And we haven't really talked about East County in a while, so I'm interested in that, and I think that makes sense. There's also some new developments out in East County that could be affecting things as well.
Right.
Jordan Clark from Redfin, what do you think? Describe the market in one word and tell me why.
One word?
Yeah.
Sellers-ish. So it's not as
That's
much of a
technically
seller's
one word,
market.
I guess.
Yeah, it's not as much of a seller's market as it was, say, 15 months ago, but it's still by far a seller's market. And I'm going to up you on the stats and the data. So for Carlsbad, in the past couple of months, the average number of offers per deal is 1.8. So we're still obviously having more buyers out there than there is inventory on the market. And so while there isn't as many buyers per property, maybe last year there was around 4 to 5 buyers for every single property. Now there's only 1.8 in Carlsbad. It's still in the seller's favor.
Gotcha.
And we're selling right now at 98.2% from median sale to list.
Wow, that's interesting. So that tells you that, you know, that really does kind of point to it is a seller's market if you look at that information, because you're saying you're almost getting list price. Some of these list prices have been, you know, inflated ridiculously. So to have that stat as an overall stat is huge.
Now, what's also interesting, too, is I also like to look at, okay, what's months of inventory we have, so we can kind of see, are we balanced sellers, buyers? And in Carlsbad, there's 230 active listings versus 69 sales per month over the last 6 months, so 3.3 months. And in that same Oceanside zip code, where it was very different on prices and volume, 3.3 months.
Wow.
So same amount of inventory as far as months it'll take to sell for both areas.
Very interesting.
Love
Very
the
interesting.
absorption rate.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's what we're seeing too. I mean, like I said, I pulled the North County, but we're at like 3.4, you know, months of inventory for North Coastal. So
Yeah.
kind of reflects what you're saying. I agree with you on the list, but I mean, that number does move around a lot too. I mean, just to say 98% it varies, you know, every month, you know, varies every week. It depends on what closes and what the price was. And
It's
all
been
that.
pretty much heading stable there, but that is the median. So there's obviously going to be far
But you're
fetches
saying,
of that
are you
range.
saying the close price to the
Sale-
original
median
list
sale
price?
to the original list?
Original list or final list?
Original list.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I mean, you know, that's accurate, and that's the assumption that we're making here. Where are you getting this information, by the way?
This is Redfin data.
Redfin data.
And so for every single neighborhood, zip code, county, city, even school boundary, we have a neighborhood page. And so you can just, whenever you're typing into Redfin any search, on the top right-hand corner, you're going to be able to click that name of the zip code area, and then you're going to be taken to a neighborhood page that will have data such as what I've spoken about, and also will also have offer insights. So every single offer that a Redfin agent writes, we write down details about what occurred during the negotiations. It's all anonymous, but it'll also give buyers and sellers and people just looking into the real estate market a little bit more information about what's going on in detail into the market.
So
That's very interesting.
So the information as far as like 98% of list, and the first stat you said when you said it was sellers-ish, I forget what it was.
1.8.
Oh, right. Are those are Redfin, where a Redfin agent is involved, or is that every transaction that existed?
So the median sale to list is every transaction.
Got it. For the whole, okay, for any agent.
For any agent.
Got it.
For the average number of offers per listing.
Right.
That is
On your
Redfin
side.
agent inputted
Right.
data.
Yeah, because
Got
that's
it.
the only way they would know that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
There'd be no way to know.
Right. But still really good information.
But
Yeah.
but I think it gets this is where it gets confusing for, you know, our clients and for customers is, and you touched on it. It is hyper local, right? So it depends on. I mean, you can cut the numbers a lot of different ways. Like I get a profile like this where we're 96.4%, but you know, last year we were down around 92. You know, this is out of Sandicor, by the way, this data.
Okay.
So, you know, and if I change the parameters on that from North County Coastal to Del Mar, it's going to look totally different.
Yeah.
Right? Which is
Right.
what you said. So it is very zip code driven. And I think when we talk in those, you know, generalities, I guess it is important to frame it in a way so that a client understands what they're looking at.
Absolutely.
You know, because when they hear on the national news, like, you know, lately, like new home sales are down,
Right.
you know, existing home sales are down. You know, when they hear those little
Nuggets,
tidbits on
right.
the TV, it's like, well, what is that? You know, is that everywhere? No, it's like an aggregate national, you know, number. And just like when we talk about San Diego County, that's an aggregate number.
Right.
So,
Well, and also too, it's even more. It's deeper than that, because if someone zeroes in on a certain area, like they want to live in Rancho Creo, which is where I live, or San Leo Hills, they're going to care what the prices are doing there. So I even dove in even further for my area, and it was similar to 92009, but still a little bit different. So it is so hyper localized. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, and I think it's going to continue to go in that direction, no question about it. So here's what we're going to do. We switch things up on the fly. We got a very, very good debate going, very close across the board as far as scores are concerned. We're going to take the next talking point and make that our first debate topic. So coming up, who is more important to the San Diego real estate market and why? The move-up buyer, the move-down buyer, or the first-time buyer? This basically gives us a macro view at what's most important to see San Diego thrive in real estate. Stick around. We'll make you smarter than everyone else. You're listening to the Real Estate Debate on ESPN 1700. All right, welcome back. It's your lunch hour. It's Friday, so we're doing the Real Estate Debate. Who will walk away with the golden mic today? Will it be Brian DeVore from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and thedevores.com? Could be Dana Harris with Coastal Premier Properties, ranchandcoastlifestyle.com. Could be Jordan Clark with redfin.com. Very, very close match so far after one segment. Let's dive into our first debate topic here. Who's more important to the San Diego market, and tell me why? Is it the move-up buyer, the move-down buyer, or the first-time buyer, Brian DeVore?
I would say it would be the move-up buyer.
The move-up buyer.
Yeah, and here's the reason why. Number one, the move-up buyer creates multiple opportunities and creates inventory. So if they're buying a home, it's because someone above them is moving. So that's one. And then they're creating inventory by moving up from another home.
They have to sell a house.
They have to sell a house. And so it frees up inventory and it creates multiple transactions. The move-down buyer, there's fewer of them. There are people who are moving down, but what I'm also seeing a lot of is when people are moving down, a lot of them are renting or moving into maybe a senior community or something like that. So it's not like they're moving down and buying something. That's not happening as much. And then the first-time buyer, obviously they're critical because they're buying that first-level inventory. But they can't buy anything if the move-up buyer doesn't sell first.
Good point.
So the move-up buyer, in my opinion, because they're a move-up buyer and a move-up, they will eventually be a seller as well, but they're selling a property, and so they're creating multiple transactions.
Creating the movement in the market
Right.
in that direction. I totally get it. Very good stuff. Jordan Clark with Redfin. What do you think? Who's more important to the San Diego real estate market and why? Move-up buyer, move-down buyer, or the first-time buyer?
I totally disagree that the move-up buyer is the important one. I think it's really good for real estate agents, but in terms of a health of an economy, I think having a continuous supply of first-time buyers is by far the most important thing. And also, if first-time buyers are able to purchase a property, it indicates a healthy level of stability in the market. And so we know the economist always states that health of an real estate economy is based upon the level of purchase price to average income. And so that's what they use to determine the health of a market. And no one is more a better indicator than that than first-time home buyers.
Okay. So you think the first-time buyer is more important because that signals real health in the kind of the overall macro economic outlook?
Exactly. And they're the ones with the largest potential future income.
Gotcha.
So, as anyone gets older, they have a lower potential future income, and therefore that would affect the valuation of property because they'll have less use for the property because they'll have less of a lifespan.
Right.
the younger generations have a longer lifespan, and therefore properties have a greater value.
So they will be in the property potentially for a long, or be in at least a property for a longer period of time, therefore soaking up inventory and creating more health in the market. Is that what I understand?
Yeah, I think if we did an economic analysis of the movie Children of Men, where there's no new children, I'm sure those property values went
Awesome
down.
movie. Awesome movie. It's one of my
there-
favorite movies.
And there's another movie reference.
I love
Threw that in for you.
Yeah, that's right.
I love
Appreciate
that movie. Great stuff from Jordan Clark, Redfin.com. Dana Harris, what do you think?
I'm going to kind of agree and disagree with both of you guys. I mean, I think, when we say the health of the San Diego market, again, it's like when we're parsing data, it's like when and how and why. So, if we're talking right now, I absolutely would have said exactly what Brian said, is I believe that move-up buyer is the most important because they affect a larger part of the market. When you're moving up, everybody's moving up, right? So at some point, except for the first-time buyer, that's a larger percentage, I think, of the actual activity. So it's really not about what's good for real estate agents. We're talking about what's good for the market. So, and that's where a lot of it is. For the long-term health, agree. I mean, I think we talked about this in another debate that I was on. But it's that how do we create a situation economically where more people can afford homes? And I think the thing that's hurting the first-time buyer right now is wage stagnation is a problem, job creation is a problem, and those types of things which do affect them. So I think those overall macroeconomic things are going to have to be addressed, those problems, in order to help them. And then they are important to the long-term health of the market. But I think right now, for where we are in San Diego and where our market is, I think it's the move-up buyer for sure.
Well,
Move-up buyer.
and I think if you look at what's one of the problems that we still see is lack of quality inventory. There's still the absorption rate is 3.3%. So it looks like it's still a little bit of a seller's market. But anecdotally, and you're showing properties and your clients say, well, isn't there more for us to go look at? No, there's not a lot of good quality inventory. Well, guess what? And that's the first time buyer looking. When the move-up buyer sells, guess what? Now that move-up buyer has something to buy. And
The first-time buyer.
First-time buyer, exactly. So, and what I'm seeing out there is there are, in at least the areas where I'm in, qualifying for a loan hasn't been a problem. Jobs haven't been a problem. It's getting the good inventory. So again, it's hyper-localized. In some other areas, maybe it's harder to qualify for a loan. So we need to try to create more first-time buyers out of first-time buyers. But at least the area that I'm in, it's getting the quality inventory, which can't happen unless the move-up buyer sells it first.
But I totally disagree that having plenty of options to choose from is a matter of what is healthy. Just because a buyer's going to have to most likely compromise on what they choose nowadays because there is low inventory has no reflection on the health of the market. And also, I think the fact that some people do have trouble qualifying for loans may actually be a good thing. Because if we go back, we kept saying that more people should be able to purchase a decade ago, and that was able to occur, and then we got into the problems that we got into.
Right.
And so I think it is healthy to hear that not everyone is able to get a loan.
I agree with that. I think that if we look, one other stat I'll throw in there is, so last month, 3% of the sales in San Diego were distressed properties. Okay. That same number was not true a year ago. And because of first-time buyers were buying distressed properties before. There weren't as many move-up buyers, but there's a lot of distressed properties. Well, if there aren't the distressed properties out there, what are first-time buyers going to buy? So if you're only going to have 3% of sales being distressed properties, well, guess what? You've got to have those move-up buyers selling homes, or else there's not going to be anything for them to buy. There's no distressed properties to buy anymore.
Well, it's not like we're building any more inventory.
And we're not
either.
building
New
anymore.
housing starts are way down. And,
Right.
And,
We can build in the ocean.
The building permits that are getting pulled, a lot of those are for multifamily,
Right.
which is almost a recognition that people are longer term are looking at renting, at least in the builder's perspective, from what they see on their horizon. So, it's interesting.
There's no question about that. But what do we do? I mean, how do you affect the move-up buyer? What causes the move-up buyer to take action? That's really the question. Is it more lifestyle? Is it more the economy? I mean, because if we're relying on that, if that's what's most important, okay, then how do we measure what the opportunity for that to take place is? You know what I mean? I think the first time buyer, you know, a real direct reflection of what's taking place in the economy. You know, and I do think that the first-time buyer has become less relevant to the San Diego market, but mostly because of the inventory shortage. If there was a lot of inventory, then we'd be begging for the first-time homebuyer credit again, right? Because the last time the market really went crazy was that first-time homebuyer credit, which really was not a reason for anyone to buy a home.
And not only that,
But it did. It worked.
But did it create demand or did it just relocate demand?
I don't know. There's
So
no way to know
Are
that.
you saying you're agreeing with Jordan and you gave him a point?
No, everyone got lots of points. And you guys did fantastic.
I don't know if you ever read Harry Denton. Everybody know who that guy is, right? And
Yeah.
he has that whole, economic sort of life cycle thing. He's
Right.
applied it to housing. He's generally a pretty negative guy, I guess. He thinks everything's going to, explode at some point. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is he was enamored with that whole baby boomer thing, like his father was, and he followed that through. And if you look at that, like I fit that exact bell-shaped curve. I did exactly those behavioral things that he said that drove me to move-up buyer, first-time buyer, move-up buyer, second home, all that. And what I find interesting where we are in real estate right now is this whole next demographic that some of us older realtors may not. I don't know how old you are, Jordan. Maybe you're a younger guy. Maybe you're in this demographic, right? But it's like, how do I understand them? Because I think the millennial buyer that we keep talking about, which is a very big pool of buyers and investors, has a whole different mindset than my group did coming through. And so what they believe is important, like what's going to happen to all the McMansions if their philosophy is less is more. Right. So we've got all this stuff that we built and we liked it, and we bought it, but now we're going to sell it,
Start
because we're
bulldozing
moving
it.
down. And if the millennial buyer, maybe we have this sort of dislocation and mismatch with the product that's out there and what people really want.
Well, you're already
based on
seeing
their
the
lifestyle.
builders are already starting to cater to it.
Right.
Exactly.
You look at some of the high-rises that have been built in the past, 10 years even. It's remarkable to me what they're doing. I mean, they're getting $4,000 a month, for these places, and you can't even see the place you're going to rent. You have to sign on the dotted line by looking at the model.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild, but you go to these places and they have tons of amenities and they have lots of good things about them, and people buy into that lifestyle. It's much more short-sighted, I think, is the difference. But you're right, and what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to find, the real relevance, peel it back all the way down to the core of it. The move-up buyer, that makes sense to me. Hey, the move-up buyer is important because they create inventory. They're selling a house and they're buying a house, so they're creating activity, and activity creates the opportunity for more activity. Totally get it. But imagine if we had this millennial group figured out to the point where they were also interested in what was available to purchase. I think that would have a more dramatic effect, on the marketplace than if we somehow figured out what it would be that would drive move-up buyers. I don't even know what that is. I mean, is it completely arbitrary?
I think it's the removal of fear. There was an actually interesting article that an economist wrote about why his daughter, who's a millennial, says she will not buy a house, and he's a real estate expert. And it's basically the people who were born and went through the Great Depression. People could be wealthy and still turning off light switches because they grew up in the Depression.
Yep.
So these people grew up having to move because their home was foreclosed on, or was short sold, and so therefore they're gun shy about getting into the market. They have the income. They've talked about, excuse me, the millennials a ton. They have the income. They have the job security. They have all that. They just have fear of what's going to happen. And that fear, if it's removed, I think will get these people into it. But in the meantime, the old saying that you should own because it's a better investment may not necessarily be true. And so they don't want to jump in and risk their money, in case it doesn't work out for them.
Well, I was trained as an economist, and every single economist professor I ever had said that every single market is based upon one thing. You know what that is?
What?
Fear.
Confidence.
Confidence.
Or lack of fear,
So
confidence, right.
the more people that you have around you that have confidence in
Right.
the market, the more confidence that you will have in the market. So yes, that totally propels people. And going back to what you were saying about the first-time home buyer credit, that's like an artificial stimulus on the market. And so
Right.
any result of that should not be calculated into a health of a market. The same as trade tariffs. that can boost the local economy, but it's not a real good indication of the market.
What about cheap interest rates?
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
talk about artificial
I
stimulus.
know
Right.
the whole world economy has been in fake it till you make it mode for
Right.
the past
Years and
5
years and years.
or
Right.
whatever. So, no, very good points though, and I can certainly appreciate that. And I think that what we're going to find is that eventually, this new group, call them millennials, call them whatever you want to call them, they're going to realize that I need to stop renting. It may take them longer than it
Right.
did for this
Right.
last group of people, this last generation. They said, okay, get out of college, get married, buy a house. This group might say, get out of college, not get married, not buy a house.
Right.
See what happens for the next decade.
Right. Hit some concerts. Have some fun.
I think that's kind of the thing. It's like because they did see a lot of this bad stuff and that old thought process that we've all been able to be sold on, that buy a house, that's a good investment. Then watching people see that go sour kind of turned it into a falsehood in their minds, and I could totally see this just taking time before they realize, well, at some point I need to stop paying,
Right.
which means I have to buy, and it may just take some time. Very, very good stuff, though. Appreciate everyone's insight there. All right, coming up, debate topic number 2 as we continue the hunt for the golden microphone. Who will walk away with it today? Up next, there are a lot of companies out there today who claim they will renovate your home on their dime, then sell it for you, and you as the seller get to keep all the profit. This is one of those things that sounds too good to be true, but is it? When we come back, we'll debate that. We'll make you smarter than everyone else. Stick around. All right, welcome back. Thank you for hanging out with us. Mr. Credit here. It is the Real Estate Debate on your lunch hour every Friday right here on ESPN 1700. Save the station in your dial. The golden mic sits in front of me right now. If you're watching the stream on MrCredit.tv, you will see what our contestants are playing for today. Who will walk away with it? Will it be Brian DeVore becoming the first 2-time Real Estate Debate champion? Will it be Dana Harris winning his first Real Estate Debate title? Or Jordan Clark from Redfin winning his first Real Estate Debate title? So let's talk. This one is really interesting to me. I can't wait to hear what you guys have to say about this. I've been hearing a ton of this stuff, on radio ads and really all over the place lately about these companies who are out there saying they'll renovate your home. They'll pay for the renovation. And you, as the seller, get to keep all of the profit. So it sounds too good to be true. Is it? What's the catch or the danger potentially in using this type of methodology to sell your home, Jordan?
It does sound too good to be true. I don't know too much about it, but I'd be very concerned about reading the contract and what's in place and where the liabilities land. If they're doing a bathroom renovation for you and then they find that the vent flue is rusted through, or they cut through the vent flue and they have a cap of $5,000 on the renovations that they're going to do, what if it goes over that? Who foots the bill? What if they flood the property? Everything.
Where's the
Just
liability?
the liability is very concerning to me. It's one of the reasons why if clients want to do renovations prior to closing, even when the property is vacant, listing agents and sellers are almost never willing to allow that just because of the liability that surrounds it.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the renovations that are done don't create that much value. And so CAR recently came out with the California Association of Realtors, and they said the top 10 remodeling projects and what they get returned. So actually garage door was number 1, and that return was 75.7%. So even based upon their study, if you spend $10,000, you're not going to get $10,000 back. And actually where you get the best return for your money is just by cleaning it up, improving the curb appeal, and taking great pictures. And so Redfin actually came out with a study, and it showed that homes listed between $200,000 and $1 million, that with listing photos taken with a DSLR camera, sell for between $3,400 to $11,200 more.
Wow. What's a DSLR camera?
It's a digital single reflective lens.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, so one of those real cameras, not just an iPhone camera. It has
So
a lens,
professional.
digital.
It looks like a
Professional.
35 millimeter camera, but it's digital.
Okay.
Right.
So, a really nice camera, basically.
Right.
Professional photos.
Professional photos.
Interesting. Very, very good stuff. Great tips. Brian DeVore, what do you think about these companies offering these renovations and saying you'll profit from it?
So I think there's two things you want to look at. When I was growing up, there was a restaurant nearby named Si's Chicken Fry, and Si's Chicken Fry had fried chicken, ribs, shrimp, clams, hamburgers. They had everything. Do you really want to go with someone who claims they can renovate your house and sell your house? Are they really going to be the best at what they do? Maybe they're the best renovators, but are they going to be the best agents to sell your home? They're jacks of all trades. That's why I've never gone into the mortgage business. And there's agents out there who will do mortgages and real estate. And I think you really need to be proficient and really good at one of them. Do it really well.
Focus.
And so maybe by having your home renovated and then working with the best possible agent from the best possible brokerage will actually get you more money because you get more buyers than someone who doesn't have the marketing ability. The second point is, to Jordan's point about how much is the renovation worth. On our website, thedivorce.com, we have the 2014 cost versus value report. I think I might have mentioned that in one of the previous shows. And it talks about mid-range and upscale renovations in San Diego, the Pacific, and nationally. And they have the averages of what these different jobs will do. And what was interesting to me is 9 of the 22 renovation projects yielded more than 100% of the value. But 13 of them were less than 100% of the value. So on average, you don't get all your money back. So how much is that renovation really worth? Now, also on one of those companies' websites that you're mentioning, I looked on there and they talk about what the value would have been before the renovations and what's the value after. Well, the value after is what it sold for. But how did they determine what the value really was before?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Was it just a random, so you can make up a number, right? And say it's worth $100,000 more. But really, is it worth that much difference? I agree, the professional photography is great, but I think if you just do a light renovation, maybe if you just replaced the carpet and did paint, that would have been enough because they don't need all those upgrades that cost a ton of money. And maybe do some light staging and the professional photography and use the best agent. In my opinion, that's going to get more value than the other stuff.
Okay, yeah, that's very, very,
and
very
you're still
interesting.
paying for those renovations.
That's the thing. That's the reason that this kind of sparked with me, because I know that a lot of these things you put money into, you don't get 100% out when you sell, even if it's brand spanking new. I mean, it's like if I went and bought a brand new Toyota Camry today and then I tried to sling it to one of you guys, for what I just bought it for, it ain't going to happen.
Right.
So that's what people are trying to do with these renovations. Very interesting.
As soon as you flush the toilet, it's worth less.
Exactly right.
Dana Harris.
Why you flushed it.
That's a good one.
Dana, what do you think about this? I mean,
the first time I heard this, I didn't truly get it, I guess. I mean, maybe I'm a little slow on the uptake, but I think it was like Daniel Plant or somebody like that on KUSI who was, kind of pimping this for somebody, one of these companies. And, my gut feel on it is they're out there, so in the market. I love the American entrepreneurial spirit. Somebody's using them, otherwise they wouldn't be around. But I share a lot of the similar concerns. I mean, to me, it's like it's almost like a pocket listing. Like if I do a pocket listing or I have that, is that really in the best interest of my client, right? I mean, the best interest of my client would be to expose it to as many people as possible so I can get them the highest price possible. So when these guys come in and buy these things, like how do they determine the price? One, is that really in the best interest for this client? Two, and how do the whole issue with figuring out what I'm going to update, and you guys I think all touched on that. So there's a lot of issues there, but at some level to me it feels a little bit like, I hate to say this about them if they're out there listening, but a little bit like ambulance chasers. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you look at their site, it says the specific, like I wrote some of these down because I was checking some of them out, where they said if you've had death in the family, divorce, job loss, foreclosure, liquidation, heavy expenses, they have a top 10 reasons to use us. I mean, all those things are really bad life things that have happened to people, right?
Yeah.
And these guys are sort of like swooping in and going like, "Here's $450,000 for your house, and your headaches all go away."
You don't check the obituaries every day for listing opportunities.
I've not tried that as a strategy, but so to me, I worry about those people that are trying to sell a house. Seriously, I mean, it's like, are they really getting a good value? And in the end, like Brian said, if you use a good agent, you price the house right. If it needs updates, it needs updates. You take that into account in how you price it when you're going to sell it, and you're very clear in disclosing that to the client who's looking to sell it. You got to give them the data to say, like, here's the same house as yours. It's got this. Yours doesn't have any of that and needs all of this updating, so yours is not going to get as much. I mean, that's just a conversation, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, these guys serve a niche for some reason, and I personally have never heard of anyone using them, and I don't know everything, but I've never really seen it done. So I have questions about the contracts like you do, Jordan. Like, what does it even look like, and how do they buy it? When
how's
does it
the
get
business
sold?
structure?
How's the business structured? And
let me put this down on this because I really want to get this in. I mean, I think the biggest problem with this whole concept is that how do you know what buyer is going to fall in love with this house? Are you trying to like make it for someone specifically? What if this person doesn't care about this type of flooring, or maybe they don't like carpet, maybe they want hardwood? I mean, you don't know that. So I think if you're going to make changes, you have to make changes that are generally acceptable, like fresh coats of paint and, new appliances and things that, are going to be acceptable for whomever it is that's going to fall in love with the location, floor plan, and all the other things that are more macro to selling a particular home. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying that I question whether or not it can be something that works consistently for a large group of people. Maybe it works for, and I'm making this number up, 60% of sellers, but what about the other 40? And that's where my issue is with it.
And you should hear from a lot of my buyers when they go through a lot of properties that have just put a little bit of lipstick on, like maybe like granite countertops on top of old cabinets. They go, why did they do that?
Right.
Now I have to pay for this granite, and then I'm going to rip it all up and put a new kitchen in. And
that's a very good point.
Well, that's why you need a real estate pro who can consult them on that and explain to them that it's probably a giant waste of money for a lot of the reasons you said. You don't know what people are going to like.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, when somebody needs a rehab, is if they need to sell the house, it's what is their why? How strong is their why? What is that why? And then figure out how we can help them out of that situation. Most of the people that we see as investors, I mean, they're buying it as is. I mean, we work with a lot of investor groups, but the houses are priced with that in mind. And, they're going to come in and buy it, and they're going to fix it up and sell it. We see more of those traditional sales. I've never, again, run into one of these. I don't know about you guys, or even seen one like on a buy side.
There's one
Like
on
I have
Costa
a client who's buying this house, and these were the guys that did it. I don't see it, and maybe it's just the market.
I don't think they've done that many of them.
Right.
I mean, there's been hundreds, but not that many. All right, we need to go to break so we can get to the last debate topic of the day in San Diego. No matter the state of the market, when a good property hits the market at a good price, there will be multiple offers. What is your best trick or tip to use to help your offer stand out amongst the crowd? When we come back, we will share those secrets. We will make you smarter than everyone else. You're listening to The Real Estate Debate on ESPN 1700. All right, welcome back. Time is flying by, as it usually does here. It is your lunch hour. Mr. Credit here, The Real Estate Debate. Who will walk away with the golden mic today? Will it be Brian DeVore with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, California Properties, and the DeVores.com? Could be Dana Harris with Coastal Premier Properties, RanchandCoastLifestyle.com, or it could also be Jordan Clark with Redfin.com. Good luck, fellas. This is the final segment. Jordan and Brian are in a dead heat right now with 14 points. Dana has 11. So, Dana, you will get the first opportunity to comment on the next debate topic. Really, no matter what the state of the market is in San Diego, we have such a high demand area for living that if there's a good property, a good piece of inventory that hits the market at a good price, it's going to get multiple offers. So what is your best trick or tip to help your offer stand out in a situation like that?
Okay. Well, first I just put the caveat in that you have to have a complete package, of your offer. I mean, so many times if you're a listing agent, you may not see that. So all your documentation, proof of funds, letter from the bank. One of the tip that we've used on these highly competitive, and especially it works with, I think, with first-time buyers, is the letter from the heart from the buyer to the seller, basically describing how they see themselves living in the house, why they love it, include pictures of the dog, the baby, everything, and throw that out. We did that last year several times, on 700,000 and below price points, and it worked. And the other thing we do or did is to have the buyer and the seller meet. And I know, Real Estate 101, a lot of people say, oh, just never let the buyer and seller meet ever, And when it's when the seller is older and the buyer is younger, it's a good thing because it's almost like they see their children possibly, or they remember themselves when they were younger, as a couple starting out. and it really hit the heartstrings. I'm telling you, it worked really, really well.
Wow.
And that's probably a little bit of a gamble. I think you have to kind of have a feel for what the personalities of the two people, and make sure that's not going to be an oil and water thing. But it can work.
You make an interesting point, because I always wonder why that's the case. Why is that such a faux pas? But that's for another debate show.
Yeah.
Brian DeVore, what do you think? What's your best tip or trick to get that offer accepted in a really tight situation?
So I think that what we have to look at is the goal, of course, is to get the offer accepted. So how do you get the offer accepted? You got to try to find out what's the motivation. But you're not just trying to find out the motivation of the seller. It's also the other agent. Because there's actually a couple different decision makers here. Because I've heard a lot of times where the seller says, I don't know what I should do. I have 5 offers. What do you think? Right?
Yeah.
So they're putting their trust and hope into their listing agent. So you have to win over the seller, but you also have to win over the agent. And it's all about what's their motivation. The number one motivation for a listing agent, at least in my case, is the deal going to close? So do I have confidence that this deal is going to close? Same thing for the seller too, because they don't want to be packing their bags and then suddenly their deal falls out. So for the seller, I think you want to find out what is their hot button. Is it money? Is it they need a rent back? What are their terms that they really need? Is it going to close? That's what they're most concerned about. So we've got to find that out so that you can deliver a package that meets the needs. For the agent, it's closability and also their confidence in me as a buyer's agent, because so many times there's a lot of bad buyer's agents out there that just like I do, that you don't have any trust in. I remember there was a listing I had a couple years ago. We had 23 offers to go through. And I went with the one agent who actually called me, followed up with me, and he wrote me a sort of a resume on himself. So it's sort of like that letter that you mentioned, but instead he was not just trying to win over the seller, but he was trying to win me over that he's going to be a professional. And I really like that, and that's who we went with. All the other terms were good as well. So I think you have to look at, you're trying to really win over the seller and the agent, and that what they're looking for, you're going to meet their needs.
Very good stuff from Brian DeVore there. A couple of really good tips and a couple of great points that you scored. Jordan, want to make sure that you have time as well to give us your best tip or trick involved in a multiple offer situation or a very highly contested property. What do you got up your sleeve?
I think it might be the ringer here. So being prepared and being quick is by far the most important thing. So on our first time appointments, I'm giving my clients a list of everything that they need to do. They're having to write a cover letter, a generic cover letter describing their hopes and dreams for their future property, and then they'll be able to personalize it later when the property is right. We also get a picture taken, and even when possible, like this past weekend, I rummaged through garbage to find some cardboard and had my clients write a note, please choose us, and took a picture of their entire family in front of the house that they're writing an offer on, and use that in the cover letter. And then also I have them, after their first time appointment, giving me a verification of funds, which is a bank statement showing their down payment and closing costs, and their pre-approval letter, so that whenever they find that right property, even if it's 7 o'clock on a Saturday night, we are prepared. We can have that offer all done and ready in under an hour and sent off to the listing agent in a nice, perfect package that's all one PDF put together. We have a beautiful cover letter, has a little bit of details of the offer on top, the picture, letter from the sellers, and then to what you were saying, a little bit of details about myself and the lender and our transaction coordinator, so that agent, that listing agent, knows that we are organized, professional, on time, quick to act. They don't have anything to worry about us. And then so the seller has all the information that they need to know about why they should choose my buyers and try to create an emotional attachment between the buyers and the seller. And so we try to find little clues through the house when we're there about to write an offer.
Ooh, that's a really good one there.
Oh, yeah.
That's a really good idea right there. Wow.
And that's, in some cases, saved my clients $25,000.
That is a really, really good tip right there. When you're looking at the house, look for clues, look for hot buttons to potentially stand on. People will have their bowling trophies and things like that. You'll see stuff like that, and you can use that. That is a really, really good stuff.
And I'll throw one stat in. Based upon a Redfin report, offer's success ratio improves by 9% when it has a cover letter.
Yeah, I believe it 100%. I mean, you get so much unorganized stuff thrown around out there. Fantastic job today. I want to thank everyone. Dana Harris for being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fantastic job again. Brian DeVore, you did an amazing job today as well in your attempt to become the first 2-time real estate debate champion. But Jordan got you just barely.
Right at the end.
Just barely. He came in with a couple really good nuggets. Congratulations.
I'm going to learn from that too.
Yeah, no, that was really good.
Yeah, I like that stuff. I was writing that down.
That was really good stuff. Jordan Clark with Redfin. You are the real estate debate champion this week. Here is your hardware. Enjoy, my friend.
nice.
Thank you very much for doing a great job on today's show. Appreciate everybody's contribution. We'll be back again on Monday at noon, of course, to make you smarter than everyone else. We'll see you then.